Shabbat Shalom. So I found myself in a supermarket this week, and I was looking for those little bags of potato chips, the ones that are just 100 calories, because I like potato chips, but I'm trying to eat healthy. So the 100 calories figured was the way to go, but I couldn't find them. Went up to the customer service desk, and there was a woman there, and I asked her, "Hey, hi, do you happen to know where the 100-calorie bags of potato chips are?" Aisle 12B on the right side, 1/3 of the way down, bottom shelf. Wow. Thank you. That was my interaction, and it was actually super helpful. The potato chips were right exactly where she said. Now, I never saw her face, so I couldn't quite interact with her. I'm not saying it like to criticize her, but just to kind of point out a little bit of a societal interaction. The truth is, I find myself often engaged in my phone and sort of losing whatever's going on around me. I might even be texting someone, so I'm kind of connecting with them lightly, but I actually am sort of missing what's right in front of me. I'm not only missing that other person, but I'm missing the whole world. That's why those of you, my students know this, and I did it this week in my team class. We start the class by having everyone take out their phone. Everyone's so excited. It's going to be a great class. Please put it on the middle of the table, face down, and stack them all up. We usually go for kind of like a Jenga tower. And that's my opening ritual. And it tells everyone, including myself, that for this next hour, we are going to be engaged with each other and the learning and the text. Jonathan Haidt, I think many of us are familiar with him, the social psychologist at NYU, who wrote a really powerful book, The Anxious Generation. And he helps focus our attention or shift it from the damage that cell phones and social media are doing to a realization of just what it's doing to all of us. Not only to them, which I think growing up in it from the beginning is really deep. Seth Kaplan, a lecturer at Johns Hopkins and the author of another book, Fragile Neighborhoods, adds another piece. He writes that phones, quote, did not simply replace something that was good, which would be like live interactions, but they, quote, filled a void created by something earlier, the earlier loss of community and the decline of play-based childhood, which had been already happening before, right? It's not enough to kind of remove the phones and stack them up in Jenga piles, but we actually have to give our children, and I would say ourselves, something richer in their place. Kaplan calls us to rebuild, quote, the social architecture that makes off-screen life rich and compelling. Now, a lot of this is based on the research of Robert Putnam, who many of us are familiar with, the Harvard political scientist and author of a well-known book from a few decades ago, Bowling Alone, also a Lexington resident, who documented how much our civic and communal ties have weakened over time. And just this week, I read a piece in Vox by Sarah Radin about something else that I found very powerful, what she called neighborism. a renewed interest in actually getting to know the people who live right around you. As she put it, quote, proximity is a resource. Like those people around us are vital. Eric Kleinenberg, an NYU sociologist and author of the book Palaces for the People, talks about where we can come into contact with these people if we live, even in our neighborhood, somewhat apart. He writes, places like libraries, playgrounds, parks, sports facilities, and green spaces are all part of what he calls our social infrastructure. And I would add that our shuls, our synagogues, our other religious and cultural centers are also places that can make this local ties possible. And I love that phrase, proximity is a resource. The people near us are not just background scenery, but they are where we are going to connect most easily and most deeply with people. The park, the sidewalk, the playground, the shul, the classroom, maybe next time the person at the supermarket counter. These are places where life is actually happening. So it's not just about taking away the phone. I think it's about giving people and all of us the world back. Now here's a shocker. This week we have two Torah portions, Behar and Bechukotai, and in neither of them does it mention cell phones. But I think the Torah speaks very clearly to this moment. It opens by Rabbi Adonai El Moshe Bahar Sinai Lemor V'shavta Haaretz Shabbat L'Adonai. God speaks to Moses at Mount Sinai and says, you will observe a Sabbath for the land, for Adonai. Torah then teaches these laws that Rabbi Willis introduced of the Shemittah, right? Every 7 years, right? The land lies fallow after being worked for 6 years. I think it's kind of an ancient system of crop rotation. And here we have one of the most famous questions of Rashi. Our great 11th century French commentator says, Ma inyan Shemittah al Har Sinai, Eitz al Har Sinai. What is Shemittah and these kind of esoteric laws doing at Mount Sinai? This is the moment of grandeur, of revelation. Suddenly we're like knee-deep in the weeds, pun intended. He then says all the commandments were actually given at Sinai. So, why does the Torah mention all the way here, already at the end of a whole other book after Sinai, mention these Shemitah laws and all these detailed agricultural and other values? Now, the Midrash, the rabbis living about 600 years earlier, right, bring an answer, which Rashi brings as well. Just as the Shemitah laws were given at Sinai and their details, so were the details of all the laws given at Sinai, along with their broad principles and greater values. Everything comes in. The details are important. The Talmud then deepens this idea. Plant for 6 years, rest in the seventh, so that you know that the land will belong to God. The details of how we do it teach a deeper value. A radical idea. We work the land, we harvest from it, we build upon it, we may even own it according to law. But every seventh year we're invited to stop and remember. This is not ultimately ours. The earth does not belong to us. We don't take it with us after we die. We belong to it. And all of it belongs to God. The Sfat Emet, Rabbi Yehuda Leib Alter of Ger, one of my favorite mystical teachers living in Warsaw about 130 years ago, he reads Rashi's question a little bit differently. He reads it not as just a technical question about where these commandments were given, but he says, what does Sinai and that moment of revelation have to do with stopping your planting and releasing those who've fallen into debt and resting and becoming free and all these little things that happen in the Shemitah year? For the Sfat Emet, Shemitah, this rest year, is connected to Sinai because he says it teaches us how to interrupt a habit. We all get caught up in the endless cycle of producing and consuming and checking and responding and working and striving. That's always there. But there's something deeper that's really always there. And that's what's pulsing through the world. Creation is evident in every place and in every moment. In the earth, the trees, the sky, the animals, and of course in the people around us. At Sinai, we saw that creation and the natural power of that moment was connected to revelation. The mitzvot and these commandments that were given, that's the path that we take to help us notice the divine, to notice that that presence is already woven into the world all the way back from creation. And the Shemitah takes this idea of Shabbat and rest that we're given every 7 days and applies it not only to people, but even to the land, to nature. The land gets to rest. Shemitah says, stop. Stop long enough to notice the land. Stop long enough to notice the person in front of you. Stop long enough to hear the call of Sinai again, reverberating throughout the world, always inviting us to listen. Sinai is not just that thunder and lightning. Sinai is not only the mountain in the wilderness, but it's right here. It's the discipline of stopping long enough to see that the holiness is already present in the land, in proximity, in our neighborhoods, in our children, in the person standing right in front of us. In the natural world that so often we walk through without really seeing. So maybe this is why this teaching speaks so strongly to our moment. We live in a majestic world filled with all of this grandeur and beauty. We live in a world of trees and sky, soil and animals, neighbors and strangers, children and elders. All of them can be seen as inviting us into connection, into relationship. Our phones, which are incredibly useful and do so many things, are one of the things that pulls us away from that immediate presence. So I want to take a small step, and I've tried it before, but I haven't always succeeded. So I'm going to say it publicly so you can all hold me to it. I'm going to try to not just silence my phone at times, but I'm going to try to put it on vibrate. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to actually turn it all the way off. Apparently there's an off button. Totally off. Even if it's just for like 5-10 minutes, and I'm trying to go for a walk every single day. So if you see me, ask me how I did. And when I speak to another person, I'm going to try to bring my whole self to that conversation. Maybe even inviting people into a deeper sense of connection, to be with that person who's actually in front of us. That's what I think Sinai does. It wakes us up. Well, Rashi didn't ask what does Shemitah have to do with smartphones. The deeper question is the same of what he's asking. Can we get into the details of how we live our lives long enough to remember what this world is really about? Who's standing before us? What does it mean to truly be present? Now, the woman in the supermarket was awesome. She helped me find my 100-calorie chips. But of course, our tradition is asking us to do something more. To find each other. To find the land. To find the holiness that has been here since creation, waiting for us to look up and notice. Shabbat Shalom.